could be stymied by a lack of capital for small business. Traditionally, a small to medium-sized business owner might borrow against their mortgage or borrow from friends and family or from a business associate. But with many Australian businesses and households facing significant hardship at the same time, that can be difficult. What needs to happen is that familiar rules and relationships around lending and borrowing need to shift. They may need to shift more than many would expect in terms of what's the useful collateral, risk calculations, repayment timeframes, and interest rates. The small businesses that I'm talking about are important because they employ 44% of the workforce in this country. And going into the COVID-19 downturn, they were already experiencing a soft economy. So the questions we're facing now is, can repayments on loans that are undertaken by businesses, can they be delayed for a number of years? I looked at some historical lending practices. How long can people take to repay loans or reparations? That could be 50, 100 years or more, or that's been the experience in Europe. So this is a rainy day, lots of businesses and households facing difficulty. Can we stretch out those repayment terms, and what are the implications for that? The formulas used that banks would use or other lending institutions would use to calculate risk could need to be revisited to reflect the new normal in these expanded timeframes and these different conditions. Even when decisions about who gets a loan get discussed within a financial institution, that process may be affected by social distancing that's been occurring over the last few months. There could also be changes in internal processes in these organizations that can lead to shifts in lines of authority. So it may be that somebody who's faced with a decision doesn't know whom to turn to make a final assessment about whether a particular business deserves and can handle the loan that they're being provided with. My sense is that these sorts of difficulties will be exacerbated in the case of those organizations who have found it often the most difficult to obtain credit. And that could be small business owners and entrepreneurs, businesses operated by women, businesses operated by international migrants, and businesses in regional areas. What can make things particularly difficult for those in regional areas is that policy decisions made by the larger banks can be made in capital cities using predetermined formulas for assessing risk and time frames for repayment that may not be appropriate in the current era, and that may not be particularly appropriate to the regional area. What I'm concerned with is that through these various systemic issues, that we can end up with a lack of capital for capable business operators whose operations are poised for growth. So I'm just thinking that we need to look at credit and repayment timeframes again, and some of those criteria about making decisions and the processes that are gone through in order to speed the rejuvenation of Australia's economy, particularly in regional areas. Thank you.